Hello, I'm Darius Udris, Vice Rector for Development and Communications at the European Humanities University. Welcome to this EHU Public Conversation at the Novotel Vilnius Center. Today's guest is Artemy Troitsky. Mr. Troitsky was born in the Russian north, but spent most of his formative years in Prague. He moved to Russia in 1972 and made a name for himself as a DJ, journalist, music critic, concert promoter, broadcaster, and academic. Mr. Troitsky is the recipient of numerous media and journalistic prizes, including the Defender of a Free Russia medal. In our conversation with Mr. Troitsky, we focus on contemporary Russian culture and politics.
I think I'm a newborn pessimist. I've always been optimistic about Russia, and I thought that, well, of course, no matter how long and winding will be this road that Russia goes, sooner or later it will become a normal country, which is based on normal European principles, peace-loving, freedom-loving, enjoying nice life, and having all those kind of very normal, boring bourgeois priorities. Well, instead of that, once and again, Russia is proving that Russia is a special country, and of course it's very good to be special. But it's even better to be special in a nice way. Unfortunately, Russia is special in a rather embarrassing way.
What drives that Russian restlessness? I mean, what do you see as the root causes of their sort of, it seems like an irritability almost, that things aren't going their way somehow. And so that's, at least it seems to me that seems to be some sort of a motivation for the behavior, but why are they so dissatisfied, and what's the problem?
Well, I think it's a combination of various factors, and I wouldn't say that there's a certain spatially dramatic, big and awful issue that makes Russia be as restless and unpredictable. Of course, Russia is very big and barely manageable. Of course, Russia is partly European and partly Asian. Then, of course, Russia is a former empire and a former superpower. And it's not surprising that for people who are used to the fact that we are a superpower and half of the world belongs to us, and another half of the world, is really afraid of us because of our weapons, because of our might, because of our this and that. Well, of course, for these people, it's really kind of sad and disappointing suddenly to find out that you're only economy number 13 in the world, that your population is going down. And generally speaking, if you come to a Russian supermarket, where at least this used to be the case, then 80% of the product is important. Yes, it's quite painful. Flourish, of course, it's a popular theory that the best art is always born in the hardest of circumstances, and well, I think that Russian history more or less supports this point of view. And I have a background of a rock critic and a music promoter, and I can tell you absolutely precisely that the most fruitful time for Russian rock music was the first half of the 80s. This was the time when Boris Grebenshchikov, Viktor Tsoi, Yuri Shevchuk, Alexander Bashlachov, Pyotr Mamonov, the greatest personalities of Russian rock music, the greatest poets of this generation, have emerged. And it also was exactly the time of the biggest oppression on rock music, when the music was virtually banned, when people got arrested in concerts, when at least, 2 or 3 big rock stars went to jail and so on. But at the same time, it was the most inspiring time for rock music. You know, the first decade of this century has been the best time in Russia. I mean, oil prices were $120, blah, blah, you know, everything was more or less fine. But from the point of view of culture, this was completely lost decade. I mean, nothing has happened during this decade, and you know, one can probably remember a couple of cult movies by Balabanov and a couple of cult novels by Pelevin or Sorokin, and that's it, more or less. And right now, during all this turmoil, I think that a lot more interesting things are happening in Russia in the cultural field. I'm also very happy that you know, the same rock veterans who've made this singing revolution in Russia in the 80s, you know, people like Yuri Shevchuk, Boris Grebenshchikov, even Andrei Makarevich, you know, they are now again at the forefront of the protest cultural movement, and I'm really very proud of them, and very happy that these guys have proven once again, you know, how strong and talented they are. I don't think that songs and novels, they can really change the situation. They can make some emotional ground for the situation, you know, for change. But you know, I wouldn't take it so seriously. This was with the three biggest rock poets of Russia, with Makarevich, Grebenshchikov, and Shevchuk. And they all three told me in various words with some variations, but they all told me the same thing, that they are quite embarrassed with the fact that all those millions of people who they thought were their devoted listeners, who they thought understood the message of their songs, and the message was always peace-loving, humanistic, and so on. And the very same people suddenly appeared on the opposite side. And it's like, you know, Grebenshchikov has this remarkable song on his latest album called «Праздник урожая во дворце труда». And the first line of this song goes, «40 лет пели, все равно, что молчали». We've been singing for 40 years, but it was the same as if we were silent. And like I found Yuri Shevchuk, you know, really depressed, you know, because he was always singing about that people must be kind. Dobrota, kindness, you know, is his message. And what he sees now. Don't believe, don't be afraid, and don't beg. And calm down. So this, I think, is the you know, the kind of attitude that the Baltic states should display. Don't believe stands for everything that Russian authorities say is lie. I mean, I think that now it should be absolutely evident for everyone. I mean, you know, one can compile big albums of quotes from Putin, Lavrov, and so on, when they said something and the next day they've done something completely different. I mean, these people should not be trusted, absolutely. They're professional liars. It's only actions that count, not the words, so don't believe. Не бойся, don't be afraid. They've stopped the Ukrainian operation, and I think that they will pull out of the Donetsk region rather soon. And I find very, very unlikely that they will undertake any other adventures of this kind, including any serious moves against the Baltic state. I mean, you know, they can do this mелкие пакости, you know, those nasty little things like you know, planes flying near the borders, some incidents in the border, you know, some information wars against this and that, but military invasion, I think, is excluded. And не проси, don't beg or don't ask. Well, this is the simplest of all messages. You know, Baltic countries must be as independent from Russia as possible. Don't depend on Russian oil and gas. Don't depend on export-import. Don't depend, you know, on even on Russian tourists. Although tourism, I think, is nice. Eventually, Belarus will become a normal European country. I have no doubt about that. They will go a longer way than, say, the Baltic states, maybe even a longer way than the Ukraine, which I'm sure will also be a European country. But eventually, I'm sure that Belarus will be very well. And I really wish so, and I have no doubts about it. The only country of which I do have large doubts is Russia. What will happen with Russia, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, to me, it all looks like a big dark cloud. And here I don't want to make any predictions because you know, it's too it's неблагодарное это занятие. It's an ungrateful activity to make predictions about Russia, because it's you know, it's a country which simply doesn't like to be normal, I think. And all predictions are based usually on logic or on common sense. Yeah. And Russia is a country, you know, like Tuchev wrote 150 years ago, a country which one can't understand with mind, you know, has nothing to do with common sense. So therefore, a very normal person like me, you know, cannot really see what may happen.
I hope you enjoyed this EHU Public Conversation. Please join us again for discussions with prominent individuals known for their thoughtful application of ideas from the arts and sciences. For more information about the European Humanities University, visit www.ehu.lt. So long, and thanks for watching.